Hello everyone, I'm Rebecca Keppel. In today's video, I am sharing the February 2020 Hero Arts My Monthly Hero Kit and add-ons. One of the things that I love about Hero Arts kits is that their stamps and dies are incredibly unique, which means that your cards can be incredibly unique. This month's kit is no different. The stamps and dies and stencils from this month's kit really bring to mind surrealism art and dreaming. With this month's kit and add-ons, you can create everything from a soft, dreamy daydream to a colorful, vivid nightscape. So let's jump right into the card making and I'll share these new products along the way. First, let's take a look at the main kit. So you get a 6x8 stamp set that includes all of the surrealist images like a door opening onto clouds, dripping clocks, a really detailed eye, and umbrella, lots of things that you can play with and put on a very dreamy card. There are also dies to cut all those images out so you don't have to do any masking. There's also a Daniel Smith watercolor palette, and it's called the Dreamy palette, and it's made just perfect for this kit. So there's lots of iridescence and metallics, and you also get some black watercolor cardstock. So for this first card, we're going to use the main kit, and I did stamp a bunch of the images in alcohol-friendly ink so that I could color them in with alcohol markers. I do still like to heat set it, and honestly, if I'm trying to not rush, I would let my ink sit overnight. I know that sounds crazy, but I have really found the best effects when I let my ink sit out overnight and then color with alcohol markers. Today I'm using sketch markers, and they have those really cool bullet tips. So I thought those would be perfect, especially for like the little fish and the eye. For this background, I did color in the clouds in a really light kind of hazy blue, and then I put the sky in a more vibrant blue. So I also colored in the little fish and the eye, which I mean, the details in that are so incredible. I just feel like even just a simple color added to it and some, skin color around it, and it looks so real. So I did a little bit of blending and shading around the door to give it some shadow. So I'm going to use the black watercolor cardstock and the Daniel Smith watercolors, and the kit comes with a water brush, but I'm just using a regular brush here and some water. Now, I know these look like tiny little droplets of paint, but oh my goodness, they really last. There were a couple of colors that I might have used up by the end of this, but those were my favorites that I were using on like every single card. So even just those tiny little droplets of paint really go a long way, and you can use them again and again on these card kit designs. So here I'm just making some hazy looking clouds with some of the iridescent colors, and there are many colors in this pack here that have iridescence or metallic in them, and they're absolutely beautiful. So you can see there's like a light lavender, a silver, there's a gold, and lots of other colors have some of that iridescence. I'm going to treat the cardstock with anti-static powder because I'm going to stamp a sentiment from the 6x8 stamp set in the main kit right on this panel here. So I'm treating it with a ton of anti-static powder because I don't want any of my embossing powder sticking to that area there. And then I'm going to grab the sentiment that I want and ink it up with Versamark ink so that I can stamp it, and it will stay sticky for a little while, long enough for me to be able to pour some white embossing powder on top. So I do like to double stamp just to make sure that I'm getting a great image there, and after pouring the embossing powder on top, I do just have to heat set that to melt that embossing powder, and you can see the really pretty detail in that sentiment. There was plenty of the anti-static powder left, so I just take a little cloth and just buff it away. And you can even use your finger to do this because the oils on your finger will get rid of those little bits of that anti-static powder left. I'm going to use some Memory Runner XL, which is just a tape runner to adhere down the door with the clouds behind it, which I really think is such a cool image. And then I'm going to pop up the eye and the little hat on some foam tape and the little fish as well. So I did cut down the foam squares into little bits and and just popped those up. And I love the sentiment, live your dreams. I just think that's such a great sentiment to add to this kind of card. I did put a bunch of foam squares that are black behind the black cardstock to pop it up on some silver cardstock in the back so that it was matted. And I just felt that kind of helped pull the whole image together so it wasn't just floating off on the sides there, but such a fun and different card to create. Okay, this is the Star Wreath die, and they use sparkle stamps, and there are dies that match that cut out all of those images like the planet and the star and the moon. And I especially love those images because they have kind of a scripty sentiment inside them. But I am going to stamp another sentiment from that stamp set on a piece of the black watercolor paper again. And now I'm going to stamp 2 of the images with the writing inside on a piece of purple cardstock and then white heat emboss those as well. So I'm going to use the white heat embossing on both the sentiment on the black and on the purple. And then I'm going to die cut out the purple images, and I am going to buff away that anti-static powder on the black cardstock as well. I did cut the Star Wreath die out of some silver glitter cardstock, and I put it on my black cardstock and made some tick marks with my pencil just so I would see exactly where I'm putting my watercolor. So this just kind of came together organically. At first I was just going to do some swipes, some paint swipes back and forth, and it turned into kind of a circular looking planet that all these stars were revolving around. So just have some fun with these watercolors. I mean, especially if you haven't used them before, you can experiment and just make some new things or try some new things, and don't worry about it because you get a ton of little colors on there. I'm going to use some liquid glue behind the glitter Star Wreath frame that I did cut out and then adhere that down around that planet that I painted with those watercolors. I'm going to trim off the right hand side because I had kind of shifted that whole image to the left a little bit, and so that gave me enough room to trim the whole panel down and then mat it on some purple cardstock, and that kind of allows me to pull in those purple cardstock shapes with the white heat embossing. This is definitely one of my favorite cards today. I don't know why, but You Light Up the Night is another favorite sentiment of mine. So the next card we're going to make using the Cloud Window Fancy die and the Dream Accessories Fancy dies. So this is the card up in the right hand corner. I did cut out the whale out of some kind of mint cardstock and the sailboat out of some gold metallic cardstock. Now the whale, I really wanted the details of it to stand out, so I'm just adding some white gel pen where the die cut some details. And then the cloud window kind of die, I am going to pop up, I cut it out of white cardstock, I'm going to pop it up on white foam squares and layer it over a blue background that's supposed to look like the sky. So I don't know if you've seen those images of clouds and things floating in them, things like that. That's what this is supposed to look like. And it says, the sentiment is another favorite of mine. It says, never stop dreaming. How awesome are these sentiments? Just really, really heartfelt, wonderful sentiments about following your dreams. So I adhere everything down with some Memory Runner XL, which is that tape runner. And then I also cut out a moon out of some silver glitter cardstock. I'm just going to put that right on the clouds there. Really, really simple because it's mostly die cutting except for the sentiment, and just fun to piece together. Next, we're going to use the Looking Glass hot air balloon dies. These Looking Glass dies are so much fun. They kind of create silhouettes and you can use them together or alone. I am going to use all 3 of these on sort of a slimline card. It's almost right between a mini slimline and a regular slimline. So I'm going to stack all 3 of those onto a white piece of cardstock, and then I'm going to trim around them so that they have an even border on all sides. And then I'm going to use tape runner behind it so that I can put it on some blue cardstock. So I'm really enjoying the black watercolor with the metallics, but then also the white cardstock on top of blue. That's like the daydream images, right? And then I'm just going to trim that down exactly to the white cardstock so that we have our card panel. The next thing I'm going to do is I am going to stamp Dream Big. Great sentiment as well, right in the middle square there. And then I'm going to color in just the hot air balloons. I'm going to leave the clouds white, and I'm going to use the watercolor again. So much fun to use this palette, and I had never used Daniel Smith watercolors before, and I really like them. They're very nice. So like I said, again, you will have plenty to complete a bunch of cards. You might even have more left over after that because a little dab goes a long, long way. And just a really sweet, cute kind of card that incorporates 3 little square images. The next card, we're going to use the Dream Catcher Fancy die. Now, I did cut it out of white cardstock and gold metallic cardstock, so I am going to put the gold on top of the white for the top of the Dream Catcher just to give it a little dimension. Then I'm going to take the white cardstock feathers and I'm going to paint them in several colors from the watercolor palette. And I started with, well, I'll just do like a rainbowish, or I don't know, but I ended up doing several colors on each feather. And I really liked the way that ended up looking. So they look almost like dipped feathers or something, and these colors are just so pretty and so unique, especially the ones with the little bit of iridescence to them. So definitely have fun with die cuts or with backgrounds and just really enjoy these watercolors if you get the kit, because they are fun to play with for sure. Once I had a little bit of iridescence and color on all my feathers, I let them dry, and I stamped in heat emboss the next sentiment, which says, "May all your dreams come true." I'm sorry, there's not one like sentiment that I didn't love in this set. So I'm going to use some liquid glue to adhere the top of the dream catcher down to this. I'm actually working on is a dark blue cardstock from Hero Arts. It's called Nautigal, and I really like it. It's one of my favorite navies ever. So I thought this would be a little bit of a change. So since we're not using watercolor on the background, I thought I would use the navy instead of the black. And I really like the way that the gold looks on the navy as well. Super, super simple. So much fun, different than any other card I've ever made. Okay, this is the Swirls and Dots bold print, which is a 6x6 cling stamp set. So I am going to just take an A2 piece of the black watercolor paper and put it in my original size Misty. For those of you who have asked me about which size of Misty to get, I really like the original because of this fact alone. You can't put a 6x6 background stamp into the mini Misty. I love having the mini Misty too, because when I'm just working on a small card panel and I'm not using background dies or other techniques, it's nice to just have that mini Misty to have on your desk. But the original is great for those cling stamps. So I got that stamped in embossing ink, and now I'm using Hero Arts Silver Sparkle Embossing Powder, which is absolutely phenomenal. So it's got a real silver embossing powder to it, and then it adds in that glitter. So you can see it kind of glinting in the light, but it's not so, sometimes the glitter ones on their own seem like they don't have really great coverage because the pieces are larger. This I really like because it seems to me it mixes a regular silver embossing powder with some glitter embossing powder. So now I am just having fun with this. So this image, I'm just going to color it in like it's a coloring book with these watercolors and just a brush. And there's really no rhyme or reason to this. I'm kind of just having fun playing with the different colors, trying them out, seeing if I can get them small enough to go inside the dots or inside different lines and things like that. So I definitely recommend, I love this stamp because there's different elements to it. There's swirls, there's dots, there's leaves, and it makes it really fun to color. I would definitely use this again, maybe try it on some white cardstock and even watercolor it there, or maybe Copic color it, or, even ink blend on top of it. But I just think it's so much fun to color with markers or something because you have all these different images on one stamp. I did trim it down to 4 by 5 1/4 so that I can mat it on some black cardstock. I was really into matting today for some reason. I don't know why. Just made everything feel really finished. So I did just kind of bend it out because it was a little bit warped between the heat embossing and the watercoloring. So I am going to use the same embossing powder on the sentiment. And this is another reason that I really like this Silver Sparkle. As you can see, it really has great coverage and you can still read the sentiment. So sometimes I feel like the glitter ones, like I said, they don't have that great coverage and then you can't really see what the sentiment says. I'm going to trim that sentiment down to a little just cardstock strip and then pop it up on some black foam squares on the right hand side. I had so much fun with this. I think this is such a fun stamp to color. This is such a unique kit, and it really helps you step outside your comfort zone to make cards that look like nothing you've ever created before. But I always love to hear what your favorite is, so let me know in the comments below which stamp, die, stencil, or even card was your favorite today. As always, I want to thank you so much for spending time with me today. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you again soon. This is such a unique kit. This is such a unique kit. These months. Something's wrong there. It's like missing a word. What word are we missing?